Hi guys, this is Pilleater, and I'm here with the Adventure Kid and Robert Stark, and today we're going to be discussing about Trump's inauguration. Hey, Adventure Kid.
Yeah,
Hey.
so did you see the protest at the inauguration?
Yes, I have. Have you, Robert?
Oh yeah, there was a small one in my town, Santa Barbara, but there in downtown LA there was a massive one. It was like 700,000 people.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was crazy.
it was just a bunch of like white Antifa who basically thought they were cool and broke stuff, but it's the equivalent of what you would call a white people chimp out.
Yeah, that's the thing is like there was this prediction that the Mexicans would riot if Trump got elected, but it's mostly white Antifa and like white feminist women who are more outraged than Mexicans actually. It's been my observation.
Yeah, and what's funny is that there was a riot in D.C. and it was mostly white people, which is funny because D.C. is mostly black.
Yeah. Did you
Well, then
see
that was also the case with the people who attacked the MPI conference.
or that there was a white guy who punched Richard Spencer? It's all white on white violence for the first
Oh,
time.
that guy was actually outed. His identity was outed as having a scat porn fetish.
What?
Yeah, someone posted this on Facebook. I mean, I have no idea
He
if
has
it's
a
true
what?
or not. This is something floating around. They outed
He has
this
a
guy's
what porn
identity, the
fetish?
guy who punched Richard Spencer, and he has some weird sexual fetishes about dominatrix and scat porn.
Ew.
What do you say about that, Adventure Kid?
Wow, that's disgusting.
Especially that's coming from someone who's on the Antifa side. I mean, I have to confirm that, but I mean, the ideal is so as long as you punch Richard Spencer, it's like that old cliche, like a Chad thing. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get laid because I punched Richard Spencer. Oh yeah, but now he's into that poop porn, so it's I don't know.
And he has I did some brief research on the porn star. The porn star who's whipping him is she's semi prominent. So he must be paying big bucks to get this done.
I don't, I don't know. I have to look this up myself to see if a poop scat lover punched Richard Spencer, or unless this is just like Golden Shower Trump. I don't know. How is your
Yeah, I mean it's hard to tell what's real and what's not because there's all these rumors going around online.
how is what were you doing yesterday, Adventure Kid?
Well, not really much. I was watching the inauguration. People, the liberals were freaking out. That guy on MSNBC said it was almost a Hitlerian speech, and how America First were a bunch of racist, anti-Semitic businessmen, which isn't true, by the way.
Like it's kind of like it was very like neutral when it happened. I mean, it was raining that day in like DC, and like unlike Obama's inauguration, it was like this happy sunny day, and like all liberal campuses were celebrating. But it's funny because 8 years later, you have like a rainy day on inauguration day, and everyone's either protesting, neutral about it, but it wasn't that chaotic if you think about it, because it's like there's at least as much people who support Trump than people protesting against him.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. The whole bunch of the Antifa were protesting. You know what's the weird part? Most of them weren't even from D.C. They came from other places like California and Vermont.
Yeah, they came from all over the country. I mean, I'm sure there's there's organizations with a lot of money that can afford to bust these people in, like with George Soros's backing.
That's what they say. But then again, I think these are just like kids who like are into hardcore punk and like anarcho crime think politics, and they basically want to live their youthful yuppie lifestyles, and they think they're doing the right thing by donning this Robin Hood lifestyle. It's kind of the equivalent like a Chad who goes to an EDM nightclub looking for a girl to get laid with. I think the same thing you could say about these white yuppie kids in black suits and doing these things. It's really just a role playing thing to make them feel better than what they're doing, and that's how I look at it in a psychology way. But if you put in the Soros thing, it's also interesting to consider. I don't know. I didn't see any. I wasn't tuning into the protest yesterday. I just thought it was awesome. Trump got elected, and I was like, yeah, there's our next president, Donald Trump.
Yeah, you could just see the looks on all the people's faces who are on the podium. You know, Obama looked mad, Hillary looked pissed. It was hilarious.
Oh yeah, Hillary was like doing her like fake smile. That was hilarious.
Or it's like, yesterday I was reading about American Renaissance. Jared Taylor and James Edwards was there, and supposedly Jared Taylor got as close as it is to Trump's podium, and he just said it was all just good things happening. And I guess there was a Philadelphia Inquirer media asking him. I think James Edward might have said, "Give him hell, Donald," and then it was translated like yesterday or today into the Philadelphia Inquirer saying that, oh, that's what the alt-right wants. They want to purge everyone or something like that. And all that's funny, all that stuff went down too. Even I think Matthew Heinbach of Trad Youth was there doing some things like telling some Antifa why nationalism is just as Antifa as Antifa. I don't know, but I don't know what to say. I think people are like kind of gradually accepting Trump is finally president. Like the thing is, people for a long time have called him president-elect. Now you have to call him President Trump or Mr. President. But some people are saying Mr. Trump, which I find kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, so what do you think about the cabinet appointments? I'm kind of disappointed in some of them. Like he appointed Andy Puzner to be like labor secretary,
was the
which is
CEO
ridiculous.
of Carl's Jr. Yeah, totally for open borders, free trade, contradicts a lot of his core messages.
Yeah, and he treats his workers like shit.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, with Trump, if he's going to be successful, because let's just face it, a lot of the demographic trends were favoring the Democrats, and his core issue was that economic populism, catering to working class people. And I mean, I voted for Trump, and I want to support him and be optimistic about him, but my fear is that he could just end up becoming like just another like mainstream Republican, like cutting taxes for billionaires, deregulating Wall Street, but doing nothing about like immigration. Venture Kid, do you see the same concerns?
Yes, my fear is they could be like Calvin Coolidge, which means that we might be in for another depression. If you remember, like the 1920s, there's all this deregulation, and then the boom happened, and then 4 years later, 1929 happened, and our economy just fell.
Yeah, and that's definitely a concern because he ran. The problem with Trump is, what's remarkable about Trump is he was able to succeed running on this populist, nationalist message. But the problem with him is he's constantly changing his views. Can be kind of like this kind of like radical centrist, populist, or a right-wing populist, or like a mainstream like Reagan Republican. Like he's not always consistent, and that also means people can put pressure on him to change his view because he's from a business background. He's not so much an intellectual, but he is. I mean, I voted for Trump, but I accepted that he was a wild card. I took into account that he could be a great president, but he could also be a disappointed. But what was the alternative? I mean, Hillary Clinton would be guaranteed to be a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, at first I thought about voting for Sanders, but then he bitched out, so...
Or even the DNC conspired. You know, they might have conspired against him. I
consider voting for Sanders as well, and I do remember that statement he said on an interview where he was talking... Originally, Sanders was criticizing open borders, and he said open borders was a right-wing Koch brothers conspiracy. I forget the specific interview, but the interview...
I think it was like on either Vox or like Al Jazeera right. Said that.
But I think the problem is we were kind of... I mean, Trump did dramatically change the direction of the Republican Party by bringing up protectionism, but we are kind of stuck in this left-right narrative. And I think politically, I mean, ideally, would like to have someone who was strong on immigration and national sovereignty, but who was also for things like regulations on Wall Street and higher taxes on billionaires and protecting the environment. But it seems to be most people, the system is corrupt, but the people are caught up in this kind of left-right thinking. Like they treat politics like it's a religion. Like if you're a Republican, you have to think this way, and if you're a progressive, liberal, you have to think this way.
Yeah. It's just like Bill Clinton said, there used to be so much diversity in America when it came to political thinking. You could be a socialist and a Republican like Robert La Follette, or you could be a conservative Democrat like Jesse Helms.
Yeah, and you have a few individuals. You have people kind of like Jim Webb and John Tester. I mean, Jim Webb was a Democrat, and John Tester is still a Democrat, who have some of those characteristics. And I mean, if John Tester, let's say Trump was a disappointment, and John Tester were to run as for president, and he got the Democratic ticket, like I would consider voting for him. But the way things are set up is that's not going to happen. The Democrats are going to pick like an establishment candidate, or they'll pick someone like Elizabeth Warren. But the way it's set up, like someone, Elizabeth Warren, she kind of plays like the establishment side and appeals to the Bernie Sanders supporters. I mean, she could possibly get the Democratic nomination because she has the appeal to the kind of the people the Hillary supporters who want a woman president and the Bernie Sanders supporters. But it comes down to it. I mean, the political system is set up where someone who's truly independent can't get elected. And Trump barely, I mean, he has a lot of flaws, but just because he's a billionaire, he was able, and also because of, I mean, has remarkable negotiating qualities, and that helped too as a speaker. But it's just the way that's just kind of the way our political system functions. Venture Kid, do you want to talk about the kind of historical reference to that in the America First movement?
Well, yeah, I read Bill Kaufman. America First was basically this movement to stay out of World War II. It had people who were like of all political stripes. It had Charles Lindbergh, Jay Hormel, and a whole bunch of other people. John F. Kennedy sent a letter, Sergeant Stryver. Gerald Ford was a member for a while, then quit.
I haven't talked to you yet, but can you kind of explain like where you're coming from and how your views have evolved?
Oh, yeah, well, you see, I started as a fairly standard liberal, like all kids in my generation. I liked Obama, thought he was going to do everything great. Of course, I was like 13 when he got elected. But then my views started to gradually change, started to read countercurrents, read like libertarian books. Read Bill Kaufman, Chief Preston, and all those guys. I got interested in like a Center for a Stateless Society and read some of their articles. And I consider myself to be like a whole bunch of things: a red Tory, a left-wing market anarchist, alt-left.
Mm-hmm.
And
how did you discover the alt-left?
You said what?
You said you flirted with the alt-left for a while. How did you discover that?
Oh, well, I first discovered it through Rabbit, and then through Rabbit I discovered like Robert Lindsay. Mm-hmm. His version of liberal race realism.
Yeah. I mean, I discovered actually alt-left through Robert Stark's program, and Rabbit was obviously on the Stark Truth, and then Rabbit, then he'll go on Millennial Woes with Greg Johnson and just circulates. And now that there's Prince of Queens doing the whole alt-left thing, it really is something that is growing, and hopefully it goes on the right path at the current moment. I mean, certainly that there's already an established alt-right. I just hope that there could be an okay thing going on with the alt-left. I mean, I would consider myself alt-left, but at the same time, there's a stigma between being called left-wing as if that means you're probably evil, but I don't think it necessarily means that. I think it's usually a left-wing faction of the alt-right.
Yeah, because the the alt-left movement is a millennial movement. We're basically people who are tired of all the bullshit that's been fed to us by MSNBC and Fox News and all like this, like stupid-ass people like Rachel Maddow and Bill O'Reilly and all those assholes.
Well, it's not even, they're not even significant anymore. I mean, like, Glenn Beck is considered now the white renegade of the year on American Renaissance, so.
I mean, he's a fucking joke.
I know, he is a joke.
Nobody takes him any seriously anymore.
Exactly,
No,
that's what I'm saying. Because American Renaissance will say he's just a joke now, and he's saying that even though Trump has won, he still believing Cruz has something, or at least a Republican coward, that goes beyond, like, conservative times 10. And so at one point, these figures did have significant power during the neoconservative era, but now everybody takes their media through like the internet and through like YouTube bloggers. And so people are making their own red-pilling ethno-state theories, and it's definitely the next step after postmodern multiculturalism diversity, which is like pathetic now.
It's also happening on the left too because, you know, you have these losers. I didn't know if you saw earlier today at the Women's March, you have these losers like Michael Moore acting like he's still relevant and it's still 2004 when Bush was president.
Yeah.
You know, basically with his fat ass marching.
I forgot about the Women's March. Yeah, that was today too. I mean, I was like, what, Women's March? Yeah, it's a bunch of women marching against Trump. And really it's just a bunch of liberals who are mad because Trump won. It doesn't exactly mean all women, Amazon women, are marching. It's like all these mixed things going on. It's like if you're a guy and you're in the Women's March, that kind of defeats the purpose. But I don't know. I can't imagine a full woman march.
Yeah, you know it's liberals because they didn't let the pro-lifers march.
Adventure Kid, you touched on something interesting. You said how the alt-left is like a millennial movement. I've noticed that most older people are more caught up in like in sort of these box ideologies. You have like the baby boomers who came out of the hippie generation and the older conservatives who are nostalgic for Ronald Reagan. But I've noticed most of the people who are interested in like political fusionism tend to be under 40. I mean, there's us. There's also people like Rabbit and Alex von Goldstein. With the alt-left, what are issues where you agree more with the left on than the right?
Well, environmentalism. Let's see. I guess universal health care. Let's see. I would legalizing marijuana.
Yeah, basically same here.
I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen in Trump's presidency, if Trump's going to be like, legalize marijuana or something. It might happen.
No,
I'm not sure.
he's I don't know. I mean, the thing is, Trump is against drug legalization, but the big thing to see is what he will do with the federal government and states' rights. I mean, I voted for California to legalize marijuana, and it passed in California. So the thing is, will Trump use the federal government and the DEA to enforce federal drug laws, or will he respect the states' rights? And I'm not sure where he stands on that, but I don't think he is big on drug legalization.
Yeah, you know, I watched something funny today. I was watching Fox News, and they were saying some dumb shit. Like, they said, you know, don't trust the mainstream media. It's like, come on, guys. You know you're the mainstream media. You know, fuck, all these networks are so biased. They say nobody is legitimate news except them.
It's more like a meta narrative going on. I mean, if you go onto Russia Today or RT, they will say that they're above CNN and Fox News, and yet you're getting it from this weird Russian perspective. Even to the account, if you go read The Nation or even neoconservative National Review, at least there is this ideal that you're, reading quote unquote authentic news compared to fake news, which pretty much now means news against an established narrative. I mean, going back on the whole protests that are happening during Trump's inauguration, the main motivation of white people rioting and having their own white people chimp out is because whites are romanticizing the ideal that they are fighting for their lives, quote unquote, or that they are part of the revolution, or that they will be in 50 or 60 years now. They say, well, I lived out my young teen years being a rebellious fighter, kind of like a really cheesy main character to an anime nobody is watching. But I feel this kind of arrogant narcissism is the driving fuel of any anarchist party or anyone who dons black and says they're a part of something bigger. And that worries me a lot because we constantly say the Antifa are just degenerate, like kids are paid by Soros or that they're just monsters. But when in reality, I think they're just liberal kids who just don't know any better. And if you gave them like a dose of like, any alt-right stuff or tell them to get better schooling than reading like liberal Toni Morrison stuff, then I think they would definitely be on the side of the alt-right. Or I don't know. I can't really predict why whites
Yeah,
will do that.
I think some blogger who is like alt right called them radicals for the establishment because they see themselves as fighting the system, but they're tools of the establishment.
Yeah, it's
But
a
I think
meta
it's
meta
natural
narrative.
for people, especially young people and young men, especially to want to kind of rebel against injustice or what they perceive as injustice. And but a problem is a lot of people maybe they're trying to do the right thing, but they're misguided or they're being manipulated.
Yeah, let me just say this. I think for the alt left to become like this powerful movement, we need to do like what the futurists did in like the 1900s, like start like this art movement and really get involved, start a political party.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of Italian futurism and the artwork.
I wouldn't know. I mean, I would like to see like maybe an alt left gathering in some city. I don't know where, but maybe California or something. I don't know. And you tell everyone from Rabbit to Robert Lindsay.
Yeah,
And
I think it has a lot of potential, but it's a niche group because the thing is, I think there's a lot of people out there who share those values. It's just sort of organizing them together. With the alt right, I mean, a big focal point of the alt right is race, and that's obviously brings controversy. But that one issue brought all these people together. The alt left doesn't really have like this one issue. It's just sort of people who have this sort of assortment of eclectic views. And then there's kind of the overlap, like there's the left wing of the alt right, and then there's people who say they're alt left, but they're pretty much. I mean, there's people who are saying they're alt left, and they have pretty much like generic liberal views in regards to like they're even pro-immigration, pro-feminism, but they think maybe the most extreme political correctness is over the top. So even alt-left is can be kind of confusing to define.
yeah, I mean, the Trump thing, it's definitely going to be an interesting 4 or 8 years. I'd definitely like to see what the Democrats pick in 4 years as the guy against Trump. I don't know if they're going to pick a big masculine beta guy to go against him. But yeah, today and tomorrow and starting on Monday, Trump is definitely going to do something when he's in White House. So, what do you guys think about that?
Well, he already started something. He took like a federal freeze on regulations as soon as he was inaugurated, like an hour after.
And I mean, that's an interesting point. He did have that impact on that carrier company going overseas. But he says he wants to scrap all federal regulations. It really depends what the regulation is, because there's a lot of like useless bureaucracy. But at the same time, I mean, he might scrap legitimate regulations that regulate Wall Street or protect the environment. So it all you have to kind of look at things in a nuanced manner.
Yeah.
Yeah, because back in 2009, he said he wanted to nationalize the banks.
That sounds.
Oh yeah, and then I remember back in 2000 when he was thinking of running for president for Reform Party, he advocated paying off the deficit by raising taxes on billionaires.
Interesting.
Yeah. How would nationalization of the banks even work? I mean, would it become a monopoly or something?
Depends how it's done. I mean, there's been different proposals. I'm not an expert on this, but I'd recommend like checking out Ellen Brown's Public Banking Institute, and I've had her on the show a number of times and like listening to those shows.
Well, it's nice talking to you guys, and hopefully I'll talk to you later. So take care.
God bless.
Thanks.